The stars hung silent outside the wide bridge windows of UNS Valiant. A ship built for war, standing quiet now in the dark. Its hull stretched almost a kilometer long, armed with heavy cannons and shield towers. It was the pride of Earth's fleet. But tonight, it felt small, too small for the weight that had just arrived. Commander Elias Rourke stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the center display. Around him, his officers waited in silence. The room was tense. Even the hum of the ship's systems felt louder than usual. The message had come in less than an hour ago. Encrypted. Official. From the Galactic High Command. Rourke glanced at his communications officer, Ensign Kira Miles. "Play it again," he ordered. She nodded, her face pale, and tapped the console. The lights dimmed as the holographic image returned. It flickered once, then cleared. A tall alien figure stood in the blue light. Cold, sharp features. Skin like dark stone. Black and gold armor covering his body. Admiral Threx Veruin of the Galactic Union. He spoke in a voice that was smooth but empty. "No anger, no kindness. Just facts. To the governments and people of Earth and its colonies. The Galactic High Command has observed your expansion, your technology, your weapons, and your refusal to join the Union's peacekeeping order. We have waited. We have warned. Now, you must comply. Humanity will surrender all military power to the Union. Earth will submit to Union leadership. Failure to comply will bring consequences. You have 7 cycles to respond. Choose peace." The hologram faded. The room stayed quiet. Captain Laura Singh shifted in her seat at the strategy table. She rubbed her forehead. "That's not a request," she said flatly. "No, Rourke answered. It's not." Earth had feared this day for years. The Galactic Union was the largest power in known space. Dozens of alien worlds served under its banner. Their fleet was bigger, faster, more advanced. Some said they ruled half the galaxy through peace. Others called it control. And now, they wanted humanity to fall in line. Rourke turned to Miles again. "What's the official response from Earth?" "They've acknowledged receipt," she replied quietly. "No decision yet. They've asked for more time." "Time," Singh muttered. "For what?" "They already made their choice." Rourke knew what she meant. Earth government had argued for months. Some believed surrender was the smart move. The Union promised protection, trade, peace. But others knew the truth. Surrender meant no more freedom, no more control over their own future. Rourke walked to the center of the bridge. He looked at his crew, dozens of men and women waiting for him to speak. They had served together through border conflicts and colony uprisings. He trusted them with his life. "I need a secure channel," Rourke ordered. "Fleet command only." Miles started working at her console. "Yes, sir." Singh stood and walked closer to Rourke. She lowered her voice. "You know they won't fight this. Not the way they should." Rourke sighed. "I know." He knew Earth's leaders would stall. They feared the cost of war. But he also knew something deeper. If humanity gave in now, they would never stand on their own again. The channel opened. Rourke gave his report. He spoke clearly, offering his tactical view. He knew the words would sit on some council's desk for hours before anyone acted. It didn't matter. He had to do his duty. When the report ended, Rourke closed the channel. He stood in silence for a long moment. The bridge crew stayed at their stations, waiting for orders. Rourke finally turned to Singh. "Prepare the ship. Quietly. I want weapons charged, shields tested, and crews on rotation." She nodded without question. "And what do we tell the fleet?" Rourke paused. He looked once more at the stars ahead. "Tell them nothing," he said softly. "Not yet." He walked back to the windows. Out there, past the black, the Union fleets were waiting. Waiting for humanity to kneel. Rourke clenched his fists at his sides. "Not yet," he thought. "Not while I still stand." 3 days passed. Silence held across the stars, but UNS Valiant was never still. The crew worked in quiet shifts, following Commander Rourke's unspoken orders. Shields were tested again and again. Weapon systems ran drills twice as often. Engines stayed warm, ready to move at a moment's notice. No official word had come from Earth's leaders. No clear orders. No response to the Union's demand. They were stalling. Commander Rourke knew that silence wasn't peace. It was pressure. The Galactic Union had given 7 cycles, 7 standard Earth days to reply. Every minute ticked louder in his head. Every hour tightened the noose. In the mess hall, officers spoke in hushed tones. Whispers about the Union fleets growing larger near the outer colonies. Rumors of supply ships being blocked or turned away. Ships like UNS Valiant had the strength to resist. But civilian transports? They were helpless. Rourke listened to every report. He heard the fear growing in his crew. But what haunted him more was the fear growing on Earth. He stood on the bridge late one night, staring at a message replayed on loop. The Earth Council had just released a public statement. We are committed to peace. We believe this conflict can be resolved through reason and dialogue. We have requested an extension from the Galactic Union to consider all options. Rourke shook his head in disbelief. Peace, dialogue, extensions, empty words. Captain Singh approached him again. She didn't wait for permission to speak. They're not going to resist, are they? She asked quietly. No, Rourke answered. They're going to fold. Singh sighed, but there was no surprise in her voice. The outer colonies won't accept that. Not all of them. Rourke turned to face her. They shouldn't. If they surrender now, the colonies will burn later. We've seen it before. He remembered what had happened on Asteron 5 years ago. A small mining colony that refused to pay new taxes when Earth needed resources. The government sent ships, crushed the rebellion, and left the colony broken and starving. If Earth could do that to its own, what would the Union do to all of them? We can't hold this ship alone, Singh warned. We need the colonies. We need the fleet. Rourke nodded. He already knew what had to be done. Prepare a long-range signal, he ordered. Off the official network. I want to reach the outer colonies direct. Singh raised an eyebrow. That's against council orders. They gave us none, Rourke replied coldly. She didn't argue. She just walked to the console and started working. An hour later, Rourke stood in front of a secure transmitter deep in the ship's command center. The message he recorded was short, but every word carried weight. To the free colonies beyond Earth's reach. You've heard the Union's demand. You've heard Earth's silence. If you refuse to kneel, stand by for orders. This is Commander Elias Rourke of UNS Valiant. We stand for freedom. You are not alone. He sent the message across hidden frequencies, hoping someone would hear it. He didn't know who would answer, but he knew they had no choice but to try. Later that day, reports began to pour in. The Union's blockade was growing tighter. Freighters near the Titan colonies had gone missing. Civilian ships at the edges of known space were turning back, blocked by Union patrols. The Union hadn't fired a shot. They didn't need to. They were choking Earth's borders one route at a time. On the bridge, Rourke called for a private meeting with his senior officers. Singh, Lieutenant Vega, and Ensign Miles stood around a tactical table, staring at the glowing map of human space. Vega pointed to the outer rim. The colonies out here, Orion's Reach, Vega 9, Hadrian's Belt, they're the first in line. If the Union moves in, they won't last a day. Rourke leaned on the table, looking at every glowing marker on the map. He had trained for years to defend Earth. But Earth had already given up. Now his duty felt bigger, wider. It stretched across every colony that still dared to call itself free. He tapped the map near Orion's Reach. That's where we go next. Singh looked up sharply. You're leaving the fleet? I'm taking Valiant to the border, Rourke said firmly. We'll make contact in person. We need to know who's ready to fight. What about Earth's orders? Miles asked, nervous. Rourke looked around the table at all of them. Earth has already chosen, he said. I'm choosing something else. The officers exchanged glances, but no one objected. They knew him. They trusted him. The engines of UNS Valiant rumbled to life, shaking the hull with power. Quietly, without waiting for official permission, the ship turned toward the edge of human space, toward the colonies that still had a choice. As they moved through the dark, the crew knew they were crossing a line. There was no turning back. And far ahead, in the cold distance, the Union ships were waiting. The journey to Orion's Reach took 2 days. Uns Valiant traveled in stilt Mode. Lights dimmed. Engines cooled between bursts of movement. Communications were kept silent except for short, encrypted signals. Rourke didn't want the Union knowing where they were headed. Not yet. When they arrived, the colony looked quiet from orbit. A pale blue planet, covered in frozen seas and mountain ranges. Small cities lined the equator, glowing faintly under the colony's shield grids. From space, it seemed peaceful. Rourke knew better. He stood on the bridge, watching the colony's defense ships slowly rise to meet them. They were smaller than Valiant, lighter armor, fewer guns, but they still powered up their weapons. "Open channel," Rourke ordered. The officer on the other end appeared on the display. An older woman in a dark flight suit. Her name tag read Admiral Mira Holt, commander of the Orion Defense Force. "Commander Rourke," she said flatly. "You took your time." Rourke nodded. "Had to make sure we weren't followed." Holt didn't smile. She crossed her arms. "Earth sent you to shut us down, didn't they?" "No," Rourke said. "Earth's not sending anyone. I'm here because I made the choice to come." Holt raised an eyebrow, but waited for him to continue. "I heard your colony refuses to surrender," Rourke added. "We refuse to lie," Holt replied. "Earth says the Union wants peace. We know better. They want control. And I'm not handing it to them." Rourke felt the tension ease slightly. Holt wasn't the enemy. She was like him, someone trying to hold the line while the leaders on Earth crumbled. "We need to meet," Rourke said. "In person." Holt hesitated, then gave a sharp nod. "Dock at Port Helios. I'll see you there." The channel closed. Rourke turned to his officers. "Keep Valiant on alert. No one powers down until I say." Captain Singh stepped closer. "You going alone?" Rourke shook his head. "Not alone. You're with me." They took a small transport down to the colony surface. Snow whipped across the landing pad as they touched down. Armed guards waited outside the port's main doors. Holt stood with them, her face as sharp as her voice. She led them into a private meeting hall. Maps covered the walls, defense grids, ship movements, trade routes. It was clear Holt had been preparing for war long before Rourke arrived. "We've had Union patrols near our borders for weeks," Holt explained. "They jammed our comms, blocked our freighters, even scrambled our satellites. No shots fired, but they're choking us." Rourke leaned over one of the maps. He recognized the pattern. The Union wasn't just pressuring Orion's reach. They were closing in on all the border colonies. Holt tapped another map, showing nearby systems. "Vega, 9 sent us a distress signal 2 days ago. Union ships crossed their border. Civilians are trapped. We've heard nothing since." Rourke's jaw tightened. Vega, 9, was a farming colony, barely defended. If the Union had struck there, it was a clear warning to every other colony. "We need to move now," Rourke said. "We hit their blockade before they tightened the noose." Holt crossed her arms again. "I've got 3 gunships and a defense fleet running low on fuel. You really think we can take them head-on?" "We don't have to win," Rourke replied. "We just have to show them we won't kneel." Holt studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'll rally what I have left. But you lead the charge." Rourke agreed without hesitation. The next few hours were spent gathering ships and preparing flight plans. Rourke contacted Valiant, ordering the crew to lock and attack coordinates. The fleet would strike the nearest Union patrol line and break their blockade. It wasn't a perfect plan. It wasn't even a safe one. But it was all they had. Before returning to Valiant, Rourke took a moment to speak privately with Holt. "You know this could start a full war," he warned. Holt's face stayed hard, but there was something else in her eyes now. Not fear, resolve. "We're already in one," she said. Rourke nodded. He respected her more in that moment than any official back on Earth. As they lifted off, the fleet of Orion's reach followed. Dozens of smaller ships, light cruisers, gunships, freighters turned into makeshift carriers. They weren't much compared to Union firepower, but they had something the Union didn't, something Earth had already lost. They had the will to fight. Back on the bridge of Valiant, Rourke watched the fleet form up on his displays. Captain Singh stood beside him. "We have a message from Vega 9, Miles announced suddenly from her station. Rourke turned fast. "Play it." The message crackled with static. It was broken and weak, but the words came through. "This is Governor Hale of Vega. Under attack, civilians down. Union ships claiming accident. Not an accident there." The signal cut off. No one spoke. No one had to. Rourke stood up straight. His voice was low but clear. "Prepare to broadcast a fleet-wide message." Miles nodded, her fingers shaking slightly as she opened the channel. Rourke stood before the crew. His words carried to every ship in the small fleet. "This is Commander Rourke. You've heard what happened at Vega 9. The Union calls it a mistake, but we know the truth. They're testing us, seeing if we'll kneel. Today, we answer them. We stand for freedom. We stand together. We will not kneel." The message ended. The fleet moved toward the blockade. Ahead, the Union waited. Rourke's face hardened. They had crossed the line now. There was no turning back. The fleet moved like a dark wave across space. UNS Valiant led the front, followed by Orion's smaller warships and defense cruisers. Freighters converted into carriers stayed close behind, their engines humming low. No one spoke much. The quiet was heavier than fear. It felt like the moment before a storm. Commander Rourke stood at the front of the bridge, staring ahead. The Union's blockade was just beyond the next system. Their ships had formed a thick wall. No transport could pass without getting caught. "They're holding their position," Captain Singh reported. "No sign they've detected us yet." Rourke nodded. "Keep us in stealth range." Ensign Miles worked quietly at her station. Her hand shook slightly as she tapped the controls. "Sir, incoming broadcast from Earth." Rourke's jaw tightened. He already knew what this would be. "Put it on screen." The Earth Council seal appeared first, followed by the face of Chancellor Arden Price. His face was pale, his voice controlled but nervous. "To all Earth forces and colony fleets, we are still in negotiations with the Galactic Union. Stand down. Return to assigned patrol sectors. Any act of aggression will be considered unauthorized. This is a direct order." The message ended. Captain Singh swore under her breath. They're still hoping the Union will show mercy. Rourke knew better. The Union wasn't offering peace. They were buying time to tighten their hold. "Commander?" Miles asked, her voice breaking the silence. "Do we follow the order?" Rourke took a deep breath. "No," he said. "Mute all incoming channels. Earth is finished." The crew looked tense, but no one protested. They knew this fight was already bigger than Earth's politics. Rourke stepped toward the center of the bridge. He opened a direct channel to the fleet. "This is Rourke. You've all heard Earth's order. I'm telling you now, we don't follow it. We don't kneel. We fight." One by one, ships across the fleet answered. Orion defense ready. Vega, 9 survivors standing by. Colonial frigate Mariner locked in. All crews ready, Commander. Rourke felt the weight of their trust. They were risking everything because of his words. He nodded once, steady and firm. "All ships, weapons live." Valiant powered up fully, engines glowing bright, cannons locking into firing position. The fleet followed, breaking stealth. The Union blockade would see them now. Singh watched the sensor screen. Union fleet moving, 50 ships, maybe more. They're closing fast. Rourke clenched his fists. "Good. That's exactly what we want." He knew they couldn't beat the Union's full fleet. But this wasn't about winning a clean fight. It was about sending a message loud enough that no one could ignore. The first Union ships came into view. Sleek, dark hulls shaped like blades. Their energy signatures flared red as their weapons charged. Rourke leaned forward. "Broadcast open channel to the Union." Miles hesitated, then nodded. "Channel open." Rourke stepped forward, staring into the main display. "This is Commander Elias Rourke of UNS Valiant. Humanity has heard your demand. We reject it. You want surrender? Come and take it." He cut the channel. The next moment, Union ships opened fire. Bright blue energy blasts ripped across the dark. The first wave slammed into the fleet's forward shields. Valiant shook violently, alarms flashing. "Shields holding," Singh shouted. Rourke pointed toward the nearest Union frigate. "Return fire. All ships engage." The fleet responded like a hammer. Valiant's heavy cannons roared to life, firing bursts of plasma that cut into the Union's lead ships. Smaller Orion cruisers darted through the battle, weaving between enemy blasts, taking shots when they could. Freighters, armed with old railguns, fired from the rear lines. The battle was brutal. Union ships were faster, more advanced, but the human fleet fought with fury. Rourke gave no ground. Every time a Union pushed, Valiant pushed back harder. Then the call came from the Orion flagship. "Vega, 9 survivors breaking through the Union's rear flank." Rourke turned to Sing. They're still alive. The small fleet of Vega, 9 civilian transports, had jumped in behind the Union lines. Unarmed, unshielded, but moving fast. Cover them, Rourke shouted. Valiant shifted position, drawing fire away from the fleeing civilians. Union ships turned to follow, but the sudden chaos in their formation gave the fleet a chance. Sing slammed her fist on the console. Union ships are regrouping. They're pushing for a full sweep. Rourke looked at the battle map. Their fleet had done all it could. They had made their stand. Now, they had to get out alive. Signal all ships, Rourke ordered. We fall back to the Sirius line. Burn engines, full retreat. The fleet pulled away, engines blazing, dodging final blasts from the Union guns. Valiant took the rear, shielding the smaller ships as they fell back. The Union did not chase. They had held the blockade, but they had taken damage. They had been challenged in front of every system watching the broadcast. Back on the bridge, Rourke stood tall, blood pounding in his ears. They had stood. They had fought. And now, the whole galaxy had seen it. Sing leaned toward him, breathing hard. We didn't win. No, Rourke replied. But we didn't lose either. The crew sat in silence, catching their breath. Rourke knew the Union would come again. Stronger next time. But so would they. Rourke turned toward the stars. We just sent them our answer, he whispered to himself. The fleet limped away from the blockade, battered but alive. UNS Valiant led the retreat, shields flickering, hull scarred from the fight. The smaller ships followed in tight formation. Fire still burned in some sections. Medical teams moved between decks, treating the wounded. The crew worked in silence, knowing they had only bought a little time. Commander Rourke stood on the bridge, gripping the edge of the console. His face was tight with tension, but his eyes burned with determination. We took losses, Sing reported quietly. 3 Orion gunships gone. 2 freighters disabled. 78 dead, over 100 injured. Rourke lowered his head. Every loss weighed on him. But they had done what Earth would not. They had stood and fought. What about Vega, 9 survivors? Rourke asked. Miles answered, her voice soft but steady. All civilian ships made it through. No casualties reported. Rourke let out a slow breath. At least they had saved someone. It wasn't enough. Not yet. He turned to the tactical display. The Union fleet was still holding the blockade, but they hadn't followed. That meant they were waiting for something. What's the Union's next move? Sing asked. Rourke narrowed his eyes. They'll come to us. Sing frowned. Earth? Rourke nodded. If they can't break us at the border, they'll go straight for the heart. The bridge stayed quiet as the weight of that truth settled on them. Suddenly, a new report came through from one of the scout ships. Miles read it aloud. Union forces gathering near Sirius. Estimated fleet size, 200 ships. Sing swore under her breath. That's a full invasion. Rourke nodded. He knew this was coming. The Union had decided to end it. He turned to the crew. Set course for the Sirius line. We make our stand there. The Sirius line was humanity's last real defense point before Earth. A narrow stretch of space near a dying star. It was dangerous territory. Gravitational waves, radiation bursts, unstable debris fields. But it was the only place where a smaller fleet might have a chance to hold back a larger one. They had no other options. 2 days later, the fleet arrived at the Sirius line. The dying star glowed red and violent in the distance. Solar storms raged around it. Space twisted with debris and radiation clouds. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Rourke gathered his senior officers in the war room. The map showed the Union fleet moving toward them fast. This is where we stop them, Rourke said. We use the star's radiation to mask our ships. We split their formation, draw them into the unstable field. If we get lucky, we force a standoff. Sing leaned over the table. That's a big if, Commander. Rourke nodded. It's all we've got. The officers nodded grimly. No one had any better ideas. The fleet moved into position, hiding behind radiation clouds and debris fields. Engines cooled. Weapons charged. Crews held their breath. And then they came. Union warships filled the edge of the system. Their lead ship, Ravager, stood at the front. Admiral Threx Veruin's personal command vessel. Rourke watched the screen as the Union fleet closed in. "Open channel," he ordered. Miles hesitated, then opened the line. Threx appeared on the display. Calm, cold, his voice smooth as ever. "Commander Rourke, your defiance is noted. This is your final chance. Surrender, or be destroyed." Rourke stepped forward. "We've already answered you, Admiral. You want us to kneel? Come and try." The channel cut. The trap was set. Rourke turned to Sing. "Signal the fleet. Begin the operation." The fleet split into 3 wings, moving through the unstable fields. Union ships followed, breaking formation to chase them down. The battle erupted like a storm. Valiant fired first, unleashing a barrage of plasma blasts into the Union's flanks. Smaller human ships darted through radiation clouds, attacking from all sides. The star's gravity pulled debris into deadly orbits, forcing both fleets to dodge and weave through the chaos. Rourke stood firm on the bridge, giving orders with sharp, steady commands. Wing 2, cut left, hit their rear engines. Wing 3, lay mines in the debris field. The fleet fought like wolves against giants. Ships were lost. Crews died, but they kept fighting. And slowly, the Union fleet began to break. Threx's voice came again over a private channel. "Enough, Rourke. You've proven nothing but your stubbornness. Surrender now, and I will spare the survivors." Rourke clenched his fists. He knew what this really was, one last offer to make him give up. Rourke leaned forward, his voice cold and clear. "Destroy us, and you'll burn with us. We've rigged the unstable debris. One shot from Valiant, and the whole field collapses. We all go down together." Silence. For the first time, Threx hesitated. Rourke pressed harder. "Humanity does not kneel. If this is where we end free." The channel stayed open. Rourke waited. Finally, Threx spoke again. No threat, no promise, just one word: withdraw. The Union fleet began to turn away. One by one, their ships retreated from the field. The battle was over. Rourke stood in silence as the crew slowly realized what had happened. They had faced the Union and forced them to back down. Sing turned to him, her voice quiet but filled with something they hadn't felt in days: hope. "They're leaving." Rourke nodded. "For now." The crew began to cheer softly, exhausted but alive. Rourke didn't smile. He knew this wasn't the end. The Union would return one day. But not today. Today, humanity had stood its ground, and they had answered with fire. The fleet drifted in the remains of the battle. Broken ships floated like wreckage in an endless graveyard. Sparks and smoke poured from damaged hulls. UNS Valiant circled the debris field, shielding what was left of the smaller ships. The victory had come with a price, and Commander Rourke knew the fight wasn't over yet. Captain Singh stood beside him on the bridge, looking at the tactical map. The Union pulled back, but they didn't go far. She was right. The Union fleet had left the debris field, but their ships had not jumped away. They were holding position just beyond the Sirius line, waiting like wolves outside a fence. "We stopped them," Singh added. "But they'll come again." Rourke didn't respond at first. He kept staring at the display, knowing she was right. They had bought time, but not peace. He turned to Ensign Miles. "Status on the fleet?" Miles checked the reports. "We've lost 12 ships. Dozens more are crippled. Half our cannons are offline. Engines are overheating. Shields are at 30%. Rourke let out a slow breath. The fleet couldn't take another hit like that. He leaned on the console. His mind raced through every option. Retreat? There was nowhere left to run. Surrender? That was never an option. He stood up straight. There was only one move left. "We take the fleet to Earth," Rourke said. The crew looked up in surprise. Singh spoke first. "You really think Earth is ready to fight?" "No, Rourke answered. But they're going to hear the truth whether they like it or not." He turned to Miles. "Open a system-wide broadcast. All frequencies." Miles blinked, confused. "All frequencies?" "All of them," Rourke repeated. "Earth, the colonies, the Union, everyone." Miles hesitated, then obeyed. Rourke stood in the center of the bridge. The crew gathered around, watching him closely. He knew this was his last chance to speak, not just to them, but to all of humanity. When the channel opened, he began. "This is Commander Elias Rourke of UNS Valiant. To all ships, all colonies, all leaders of Earth. You've heard the Union's demand. You've seen the cost of silence. You've watched them blockade our worlds, attack our people, and call it peace. We stood against them at the serious line. We stopped them for now, but they will return. You have a choice. Stand or fall. Fight or kneel. We choose to stand. The message ended. Rourke turned to sing. Plot a course for Earth. Hours later, the fleet reached the Sol system. Valiant slowed as it approached Earth's orbit. The ship looked bruised and broken, but still stood tall. Earth's Defense Command sent warnings. They told Valiant to turn back. They said Rourke had no authority. He ignored them all. As the fleet reached high orbit, Rourke sent a final request. Commander Rourke requesting audience with the Earth Council. This time, they answered. Rourke stood in the Council's grand chamber. The room was cold and clean, walls of glass and steel. Dozens of political leaders sat in silence, watching him like he was already guilty. Chancellor Price spoke first. You were ordered to stand down. Rourke stood tall. I follow my duty. Your duty was to obey command. My duty, Rourke said firmly, was to protect humanity. The council shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered. Others watched him with cold, hard stares. Price leaned forward. You've put us all in danger. No, Rourke replied. The Union put us in danger. I only showed you what's already coming. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. You can surrender, Rourke continued. You can call it peace. But the Union won't stop there. You'll lose control over every colony, every ship, every life, and you'll answer to them forever. Price stood slowly, his voice sharp. Enough. Rourke didn't flinch. You can silence me, he said, but you can't stop the truth. The colonies have already chosen to stand. The fleet has chosen to stand. If you refuse to fight, you'll stand alone. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, an older council member at the far end stood. Her voice was quiet but firm. He's right. All eyes turned to her. We've waited too long. We've hoped for mercy that isn't coming. She looked at Rourke. What do you suggest, Commander? Rourke took a deep breath. Prepare every ship we have left. Arm the colonies. Send a message to every human settlement, every defense post, every fleet. He stepped forward, voice steady. Let the galaxy hear it again. Humanity stands free. Later that night, aboard Valiant, Rourke stood at the bridge window, looking down at Earth. The lights of the cities glowed like distant stars. Singh approached quietly. They're preparing the fleet. Rourke nodded. Do you think we have a chance? She asked. Rourke didn't answer right away. He watched the planet turn slowly below them. We have more than we had yesterday, he said softly. The crew worked around them, repairing what they could, preparing for what was coming next. Rourke knew the war wasn't over. The hardest fight was still ahead. But they had drawn the line. They had made their stand. And they weren't standing alone anymore. A week passed. The galaxy waited in silence. The Galactic Union made no move. Their fleet stayed at the edge of human space, watching but holding position. On Earth, for the first time in weeks, something had changed. Factories roared back to life. Shipyards worked day and night. Transmissions spread across the colonies, stand together or fall apart. Across the stars, human fleets began to form. Not just warships from Earth, but vessels from colonies long divided. Orion's Reach, Vega, 9 survivors, Hadrian's Belt, even small frontier settlements. Civilian freighters. Mining ships armed with makeshift weapons. Old defense cruisers pulled from mothballs. It wasn't much compared to the Union's size and strength, but it was more than humanity had ever stood with before. On board UNS Valiant, the crew worked without pause. Crews patched hull breaches, rerouted power grids, loaded fresh supplies, and prepared weapons. The ship still carried the scars of every battle they had fought, but Valiant stood ready. Commander Rourke watched it all from the bridge. He had seen fear before. He had seen desperation. But this was something different. This was hope. 3 days later, the Union finally moved. Sensors lit up across the fleet as hundreds of enemy ships crossed back into human space. They weren't coming for the outer colonies this time. They were heading straight for Earth. Rourke stood in front of the tactical map. He knew this was it, the final move. He opened a secure, fleet-wide channel. His voice carried across every ship in the human fleet. We've come to the end. You all know what's coming. You've seen the cost. But we've already sent our message once. Now we send it again. And this time, the galaxy will hear it loud and clear. Stand together. Stand free. All ships move to intercept. The fleet moved. Valiant led the charge again, engines burning hot. Behind it, Earth's fleet stretched wider than Rourke had ever seen. Hundreds of ships, different sizes, different crews, different worlds, now moving as one. They met the Union fleet halfway between Mars and Earth's orbit. The stars lit up with energy as weapons charged. Two great forces stared across the dark. Waiting, Rourke called for an open channel. Admiral Threx Veruin appeared once more, his face unchanged. Calm, cold, unmoving. Commander Rourke, Threx said, you've gathered more than I expected. But this ends the same. Surrender. Or be erased. Rourke didn't blink. He stood straight, face hard and voice clear. You asked for surrender. Here's our answer. Rourke turned to Miles. Broadcast the message. Miles hit the command. Every human ship, every colony, every station began sending the same transmission on all channels. One simple sentence, spoken by human voices from across every world. We do not kneel. The message echoed across space, again and again. A wall of voices, unshaken, united. Rourke stepped forward one last time, staring at Threx's image. You can burn every ship. You can destroy every city. But you will never take our freedom. Silence fell between them. Threx's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly, as if measuring the cost again. He spoke quietly. You will regret this. Rourke leaned closer to the console. We already know the price, and we're ready to pay it. The channel closed. The two fleets faced each other for what felt like hours. Weapons stayed locked. Shields stayed raised, but no shots were fired. And then, slowly, the Union ships began to turn. One by one, the massive fleet pulled back. No fight, no warning, just silence. The crew of Valiant watched in stunned silence as the Union fleet disappeared into the stars, leaving human space untouched. On the bridge, Singh let out a breath she had been holding. They're leaving, she whispered. Rourke stayed quiet for a moment, watching the last Union ship vanish. They'll be back, Singh added softly. Rourke nodded. Yes, he agreed. But so will we. He turned toward his crew. Faces of every age, every background, standing together. Tired, bruised, but standing. They had done what Earth's leaders feared to do. They had united a broken people. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would fight for its future, no matter the cost. And most of all, they had proven one thing. Humanity stood free. Later, Rourke stood alone on the observation deck. Earth floated below, quiet and peaceful for now. The stars stretched far beyond. Unknown, dangerous, but full of promise. Singh joined him, standing quietly at his side. Do you think they'll ever understand what we did here? She asked. Rourke gave a small, tired smile. Someday, he answered. He turned away from the window, ready to face whatever came next.